Welcome to part 4. I want to thank you and acknowledge you for staying with me and making it all the way to this last section that we're going to talk about PRISMA values. And at this point, you've learned about why do PRISMA, who is it for? You've learned about the PRISMA world. I've painted you a picture of the different contexts that we're going to navigate together. You've learned about what do we mean by trauma in PRISMA. We've shared about the latest research on trauma healing and consensus. And now you know why PRISMA is such a potent healing tool. And when I talk about the PRISMA values, I'm not going to talk about like value statements. That's not what I'm going to do here. I'm going to explain to you what do we mean by value in PRISMA. And we're going to go into detail because the values are crucial and essential to do this work. And we basically have 9 values. We have 2 core values, which is growth and agape love. And then we have 7 other values. We have congruence, and we have truthfulness, we have integrity, we have empathy, we have dignity, we have humility, and we have interbeing. And these are the PRISMA values. What is a value, and what do we mean by that in PRISMA? And in PRISMA, that is something that is a principle, something that orients, that informs, that guides, that affords your awareness, a type of energy, and it affords choice making. And these values are aspirational. You can embody more or less. So how much growth can you embody? How much agape love can you embody? How much empathy can you embody? And how much can you embody them at any given moment? So they are also situational and contextual. And because these values are aspirational, they are subjective and contextual, we can't make a rule out of these values, but what we can agree on is that these are the set of values that we're going to aspire to. So we can't demand or force these values onto others, and it requires the presumption of positive intention. There are trade-offs, and this is super interesting because how much empathy and how much integrity and how much dignity can you embody at any certain moment? So they regulate each other, and these are the ecology of values in PRISMA. A typical life example is the bride walking into the aisle, and you look at her, and the dress doesn't really look great on her, and she's asking you, hey, what do you think? How do I look? And in that moment, what do you value? Are you valuing truthfulness? Are you valuing the friendship and empathy? It's contextual. And inside of the PRISMA meeting, the values are going to be interpenetrating, informing one another, and you need to have dignity to advance your experience. But because this is relational, you're also valuing interbeing, and you're also needing to value congruence, and that also interpenetrates with truthfulness. And so do you see what I mean in the dance that you're going to get to navigate, how they calibrate and regulate each other? This interpenetration and ecology of values generates coherence, and when put together, they make the crucible. So the values put together with the possible tension between them plus the rules create this incredible crucible for the work to happen. And to the degree that everyone in the workshop embraces these sets of values, the workshop will be more fruitful for everyone. The more, the more. This is easier said than done. And ultimately, this affords distributed condition. This affords more collective intelligence that comes from inside the group. And this is huge. And you get to play an essential part because we are counting on you and we're counting on each other. All of this points to what it means to show up in this PRISMA adventure. And in this next slide, I'm going to expand on each of the PRISMA values. And the way that I want to invite you to listen is in an embodied way. I don't want you to get caught up in trying to understand cognitively. Imagine that you're smelling a flower. Let them touch you in the way that they do. Growth. I orient myself to engage with the ongoing and boundless potential I have to learn, develop, evolve, transform, realize, actualize, and transcend. Something I want you to know about growth is that it's another way to say personal transformation. And a way that I see growth is something that affords the sense of meaning, the sense of satisfaction, just like when you go to a workshop and you feel incredible, on top of the world. So here in Prisma, we're very inspired by Robert Keegan's work in adult development, as I mentioned in the section around the Prisma world. And the way in which he speaks about it, and like also we say it's the name of our game, is making the unconscious conscious in an embodied way. And he speaks about the unconscious, and he says that there's ways in which we pay attention to things. There's patterns that we have that we don't know that we have, and there's things that are salient to us, and that once we realize those things, we start realizing our patterns. We start realizing, how is it that we're paying attention to things? How is it that we have that in the background, operating mechanisms that are perceiving the world and relating to the world in a particular way? And he says, as we develop, then we start to pay attention to that. And your subjectivity, that is the way in which you perceive the world and reality, becomes the object of your attention. Now you start to pay attention to the way that you pay attention. And this is how you start to know more of yourself. You start to realize yourself in the way that he presents it. And there's also something about healing here in Prisma that we talked about in the section about trauma in the prior slides. And one thing that I want to say about personal transformation growth is that trauma stagnates personal transformation and growth. And why do I say that? It's because we had what we call the kinks in the hose. We have those black holes that pulls us down, that are constantly driving us in the background, like avoiding the pain that we felt with that event, with that thing that happened. And we don't want to feel that again. So we avoid and we move away and we resist. So a key component in growth and personal transformation here in Prisma is healing your trauma. And that will give you more options and it'll free you up. It will give you the ability to develop more. It'll allow for your life force to unleash. And here you'll find more flow. You'll become more free of these mechanisms and failure patterns to have more conscious choice. Agape love. I orient myself to honor and embrace all beings and all their parts in service of their growth and well being. I orient myself to honor all beings' intrinsic value, and I do so through universal and unconditional love, compassion, and acceptance. I orient myself to express benevolence and mercy through generosity, charity, kindness, and aid in service to the well being and growth of others. Agape love is fundamental in the Prisma work, and it's a distinction that the Greeks established. They talked about eros and philia and agape, but we're not going to dive into the three of them. But one way to conceptualize agape love is the love of the mother, is the love of God. And John Vervaeke, which is one of the Prisma sources, explains that agape love is a particular way of participating in another's life with the orientation of wanting them to thrive. And it's like wanting the best for others. It's wanting the best possible way. It's caring for them, caring for you, and caring for others in the best possible way. So agape love is sparkled everywhere in Prisma. It's like the waters we're going to swim in, the air we're going to breathe. And this value informs everything and affords more and more growth. So it's really an essential condition for the work here in Prisma. So then we have this slide where we're painting these trees as a representation of growth. These trees are growing, just like the growth of value. And then we have agape love, these little sparkles everywhere. It's like the air that provides the conditions for these trees to grow. And then we have the other values: congruence, truthfulness, empathy, interbeing, integrity, dignity, and humility. And I'll go through each one of them. Congruence. I orient myself to express myself coherently such that my thought, voice, word, body, and way of being are mutually reinforcing and aligned with my intention in any moment of self-expression. And this is key in Prisma. So it basically means that your external appearance and expression matches the way how you feel internally. And if you value this and you embody this, you'll find a lot of material that will come forth. Because sometimes we're really not aware of what we're feeling. And if you pay attention to the way that you're expressing and what you're feeling, like the way that your face or your body is moving as you're expressing and while you're feeling what you're feeling inside, that's what we mean by congruence. Truthfulness. I orient myself to communicate honestly and accurately when sharing information about myself, my knowledge, and my experiences to the best that I know it. This is super important, and it's a more sophisticated way that we mean it here in Prisma. And for Prisma to become a more fruitful experience and workshops for you and for everyone, I mean, you really need to pay attention if what you're saying is not only the truth, but is it the whole complete truth? So if somebody asked you, hey, what's your experience? And you're sharing your experience, but you're saying a part of it, but there's something in the background that you're not bringing and it's incomplete, or you're not revealing, or you're concealing, then you're not being truthful. And maybe for whatever reason, you don't want to share it. Maybe you feel scared or unsure, or you don't want to hurt the other person, but these concealment is not being truthful. And it's hard because we unconsciously and sometimes consciously, we lie to ourselves and sometimes we lie to others. So bringing your truth, it's the best way that you have access to more information to in any particular moment inside of the Prisma workshop. It can mean that bringing your truth becomes an essential key for another or for something to open up. So the way that we see truth here in Prisma is that it opens up. Empathy. I orient myself to connect with the experiences and perspectives of others, and I do so by receiving their expressions such that I understand them, including the intentions and experiences that motivate their expressions. A specificity I want to add here is that there's also an energetic quality about empathy. We like to say here in Prisma that it's the invitation to be porous, like you're allowing others to impact you. And if you allow yourself to feel with another and you let that feeling of the other impact you, then you're permeable. Like it's another way of saying that you're porous, that you are available. And this is really key for the Prisma meeting and for the collective intelligence and for the whole workshop to work. So empathy is really, really important. Interbeing. I orient myself to honor the interconnection among all beings and how we co-evolve through our interactions, and do so by identifying with each other, considering the impact our choices have on each other, supporting our joint interest, and fostering consensual and voluntary exchanges. So, Prisma is relational. And like I said before, we're social beings and we're in this together. You could be a key for another person, and that's a way to harvest and to honor the possibility for collective intelligence and distributed cognition. And we're doing this crucible together, and we deeply, deeply value togetherness. Integrity. I orient myself to honor any word I have given to another as an agreement, commitment, or intention by making choices consistent with the word I have given. And the way that we use this value in Prisma is not the inner integrity, it's more the integrity towards the word that you gave when you said you were going to do what you said you were going to do. So we do have very strict rules in Prisma, and we're going to learn more about them in the workshop, but we're going to follow the rules. We're going to be on time, you're going to honor timeouts, etc. You're going to honor the rules so that we can have the safe container to do the work. And it's very, very important, this piece. Dignity. I orient myself to honor my worthiness and my own unique life experience. And I do so by respecting my thoughts, feelings, perspectives, and choices, and also by advancing my desires, goals, and well being. So, what I want to say about dignity, it simply means that your experience matters. You're bringing forth your experience. Your experience really matters. And like I've repeated many times, it could be a key for another. And it's really important to bring your experience forward. And your experience matters to the group, and it impacts and influences the group. And this is required to play this game together. Humility. I orient myself to honor the limitations of myself and my life experience by respecting the worthiness of other beings and their thoughts, feelings, perspectives, choices, desires, goals, and well-being. And we could say that humility is the reverse of dignity in that the experience of others also matters. So these are the Prisma values. And if you made it this far, that means you went through the whole intro and preparation for our Intro to Prisma call. And again, congruence, truthfulness, empathy, interbeing, integrity, dignity, and humility is the spirit that will inform everything that we do. And again, I want to thank you and acknowledge you for getting all the way to the end. And the team and I are super excited to see you soon. And please come prepared to share how watching these videos have impacted you as you take the next steps into your adventure. So, game on.